Welcome to My First Boat. In this channel we will show you the step-by-step restoration of our 40-foot vintage steel yacht, with the goal to someday living on it full time.
The cold season has finally arrived here in Berlin, Germany, and I can tell you one thing, it does not make life on the water easier. But hey, at this point I'm kind of committed to this project, so all I can do is put on some warm clothes and then push on. And so today we're gonna finish two major projects which I have been working on for the better part of the past 2 months. First up, let's work on the shelf we are building for our inverter charger. The wooden structure is mostly complete, so we can start putting in the first components. Here I'm putting in the main battery switch into the teak wood plate. After that, I'm gonna screw down the teak wood plate onto the rest of the wooden structure. Next, we can start filling up this empty compartment with various electronic components, such as the shunt for the battery monitor here on the left and a 400 amp fuse on the right. And I also added a bolt here to give it some additional strength. Next, let's install the AC breakers onto the back of the teak wood plate. I made 2 little support blocks out of oak wood, which allow me to attach the breakers firmly at a specific distance from the teak wood plate. Next, I added a grounding bus bar into the DC negative line, and then I can already attach the thick DC wires. Next, I've added the AC wires and wired up the battery switch, and then finally I can install the battery monitor, which comes with its own set of cables already in place here. And in case anybody wonders, I'm powering my inverter charger with 4 Victron Energy AGM supercycle batteries, which I've wired together into a 24-volt battery bank. Alright, now everything is ready for the Victron Quattro to be installed. And once installed, I wired it up. Now we can finally put the shelf back together. Now about this, what I came up with is to make 2 little triangles out of leftover teak wood, which I'm simply gonna place into the corner, drill a hole through, and then put a screw in. And with that, I can't believe that I'm finally saying this. After almost 1 year of owning and using it, our inverter charger is finally installed safely and, dare I say, sturdily, ready to fulfill its purpose. I'm pleased to say that the mistake I made when cutting the hole for the battery monitor is hardly visible at all. I have access here from below in case I need to change the fuse or if I want to add a second battery to the battery monitor. And so the shelf project comes to an end. Next, let's return to making the new door frames, which are urgently needed because there are huge gaps between the doors, which is of course not ideal for the upcoming winter season. In previous episodes I showed you how I got some solid oak wood and how I made the first frame. Here I still had to add one horizontal beam to complete the frame. Now that one frame is complete, let's move on to making the frame for the port side door. Here we have a similar situation with some protruding bolts on one side and an acute angle on the other side. So let's start with that. I'm using my electric plane to shave an angle into the wood. Next I have to drill some holes into the steel to eventually screw down the frame. Next, let's take care of those protruding bolts. First, I need to mark their position onto the wood. Then I drill some holes with a big wood drill to create a cavity where the bolts can fit inside. Next, I mark the position of the holes in the steel onto the wood. Then drill said holes. Then screw the wood in place. And repeat the same process on the other side. Here on the bottom there's no way for me to put a screw through, so I'm gonna have to drill a hole in this side of the steel. Finally, I screw the left part of the frame firmly in place. Next I prepare the big horizontal beam on top. And then the two horizontal beams that sit at the bottom of the frame. Now let's see if everything fits. Perfect. All the parts of the frame fit nicely together, so let's move on to the assembly. And we're gonna move real fast here, because it's exactly the same as I already showed you for the first frame in a previous episode. And with that, the new door frame for the port side door is also finished. Now then, let's put it in place and have a look at what we got. Well, I'm happy with that, so let's move on. I got some 60mm wide, 9mm thick wooden strips to add to the inner side of the frames. First, let's cut them all to size. Now that we have a snug fit on all the wood strips, I treat them with a thin layer of tung oil and then put everything in place. In some areas I need to widen the gap between the door and the wooden strip. Now that everything is done and fits perfectly, we can drill the holes, countersink the holes and then put some screws in. I then repeat the same process for the remaining of the strips on both door frames. Next, I'm gonna use these aluminum profiles, which at this point I had already polished, drilled and countersunk some screw holes and cut them to fit perfectly into the frames. Next, it's time to take the brush seals and put them into the aluminum profiles. And the final step is to screw the aluminum profiles with the brush seals onto the door frames. And there you have it. The doors are now properly sealed all around. And with that, we are one step closer to getting the boat ready for the winter. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video.